Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. I am so excited that you guys are here with us again. And today I have a new friend, but I feel like we've had quite a bit of new friends over the last few weeks, and it makes me so excited. We have a really wonderful show lined up. Our new friend is Fletch, who is the creator of the comic book. So everyone, welcome Fletch. Hi, Fletch.
Hi, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's, I guess, dive right in. Talk to me about The Gay Zombie. So this started as a musical quite a while ago.
Yeah, so a long time ago, another lifetime ago, I was realizing that everybody seemed to have a zombie property. Like everything was zombie, zombie, zombie. And I was like, wow, everybody has something zombie. I should do something zombie. And
So
then I
this is
saw
like
that
the big zombie show. Like this is during the time with
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead, yes.
Totally Walking Dead. Walking Dead was happening. And then also that book came out, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is hilarious. And the cover is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And
and wasn't there another like an what was it, like Abraham
Lincoln Vampire
killer?
Hunter.
Yeah.
Vampire Hunter. That movie is amazing. There is a train scene that is next level. It's so good. And he's so hot in that. Abraham Lincoln is such a babe in that movie. It's amazing. But I really loved I loved the zombie pastiche. And I also loved how horror could be campy. And that's been my take on zombies. It's more in the comedic realm. So I lean towards zombies who have a little bit of consciousness to them, who aren't, so Night of the Living Dead, but have a little bit of vocabulary and even some vocal chops. And so I sat down, and I'm a theater kid. And so I started to write this musical about Tom the Gay Zombie. And it's a jukebox musical, and it's got a lot of classic rock and roll. And it follows Tom and AC/DC, Black Flag, Nine Inch Nails, Radiohead. And so it follows Tom and his zombie band, who are named Death Becomes Her. And they're performing on stage, telling their zombie story. So it's kind of like Hedwig and the Angry Inch meets Night of the Living Dead. And Tom talked about how there was an incident at a Walmart, that there was an explosion involving some guns and some fertilizer and some bad chicken tenders that made it explode. And that was the genesis of the zombie apocalypse. And they escaped that. They escaped the authorities to New York City to hide out, because the living dead can assimilate in New York because everybody kind of looks like the living dead there. And he has to get a job to support his new eating habits of eating raw. And he finally eats a person, and then that freaks him out. So he ends up in Zombies Anonymous to stop eating people. And so they all go to morgues to eat dead people rather than living people. And he falls in love with a mortician. And so he's telling a whole love story about falling in love with a mortician, and all the while singing songs about it. And it's a real cute little show that I put up. And so that was the genesis of the show.
That's so wonderful. I think that's so fun. What was the reaction of the audience? Were they like, what are we watching? Or were they like
100%? They were super gagged. One of my favorite comments was, I don't know what I just saw, but I loved it.
So how did the comic book come about? The musical actually went up a bit ago, a while ago, yes?
Yeah, like over a decade ago. So I wrote that night. I'm a New Yorker, And now I live in Miami, but I was in New York at the time and I put it up in the East Village in New York. And I did it. It was a passion thing that I did and it ran and then I put it to rest. Then during pandemic, I got furloughed from my job. I am by day creative director and I produce corporate events, product launches and business meetings and stuff that happens on stage in ballrooms and hotels. And so I kind of take my theater and bring it to my 9 to 5 and I get to put up these shows. Anyway, that whole industry got really gutted during pandemic and I was one of the casualties of it, like so many of us were across the board, but particularly my industry. So I was furloughed and I had a bunch of time on my hands. And I'd always drawn, but I really wanted to focus on drawing with this time. So I bought this book called Making Comics by Linda Berry, and I literally have it right here. I'm staring at it. Linda Berry is a really big deal in the comics world. She's probably the most well-known female comic artist. She's a MacArthur Grant winner, and she teaches at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And she has this book that's so great. It's actually designed, I'm looking at it right now, like a composition book. Like it has all the lines in it of a composition book. And she draws the instructions like comic in the book. So you follow along and you learn that comics are just, it's not about being a great artist. It's about telling good stories and putting pen to paper, whatever it is that feels correct to you. So I just drew every day during pandemic. And then finally, a comic version of Tom popped out and I started running with it and made an Instagram of his stuff. And they kind of turned out to be like single panel Far Sides of Tom's little adventures. So I just kept practicing and putting pen to paper and then building up the Instagram. And then I got a little bit more technically savvy and was able to start doing it on my iPad. And that's how the comic came to be. And then finally, it took a while, but I decided to put the anthology together and print it for the first time. So I got it published. So now there's a hard copy in my hands as we speak. And that's where I met Jose, your producer, at the Queer Art Show. That's where I did the book launch. That's where the comic finally officially came to life in the real world.
Oh, you're here. So you started out as a theater kid, but were you a visual artist before, or was this like, was pandemic? Because I know all of us during pandemic, we started experimenting with all types of things and all types of creative things that we had never even thought about before, just because we all had so much time. Was the visual arts something that you had experienced or you had explored before? And same with writing. Was writing something you had explored before?
I feel, my friend says, who's a fellow Aquarian, I'm an Aquarian, says we're jack of all trades, master of none. I really dabble in a lot, but ever since I was a kid, I've been artistic. And I remember drawing in my notebooks, and art class was a really big deal to me, whatever medium we were working in. And I grew up in a school district that had a great arts program. So I feel really lucky for that, but I got to explore a lot of different mediums. So I've always had a sketchbook on hand, drawing either portraits or cartoons, but nothing ever formally. It was just kind of an extension of, maybe a journal I was working on. It just kind of happened.
There's something really cool about that though. Like, right, growing up, because I grew up when I was a little kid, my school district had a really robust arts program. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and we had, we would go to the Art Institute downtown, and we would go to the symphony. And I remember our art teacher was so excited because like the year that I got into the school, this is junior high school, the school bought a kiln. And so she was so excited about being able to do pottery. And there's something really cool about, when you're young, to be able to just kind of like throw your hands into all types of different forms of art. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I love the word kiln, by the way. It's one of my favorite words. It's so great. It's such a great word. P.S. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
Oh
Where'd
my
you grow
God.
up? I grew up in Glencoe.
Okay. You're a North Shore kid. I grew up
Yes, I
west.
am.
I grew up in Forest Park.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. We're like waving at each other practically.
Totally.
Yeah, I had access to all that stuff too. We would take trips downtown. We would do field trips to the museums downtown and to all the cultural stuff down there. So access to, Chicago's art world was really super informative to me growing up. My school made it available. And then my friends and I would bop downtown during high school too to go catch either theater, or there were great comedy troupes. I remember there was this troupe called Too Much Light
Too
Makes
much
the Baby
light
Go
makes the baby
Blind.
go blind.
Come on.
That
Yes,
was
yes.
Can I tell you, my freshman year, I went to St. Ignatius in the city. I don't know if you know St. Ignatius. I went to St. Ignatius and we did Too Much Light Makes the Baby Go Blind. Like too much, and then we had to go see it. And it was so awesome. It was
I
so awesome.
remember, I loved it. They were so great. I remember them doing like these improvs where they would like rip down ideas from these, like this clothesline above the stage, and they would
Yeah.
like create a story. It was so fun. They also had great t-shirts. I remember this. I just remember wearing their t-shirt and feeling so cool. They were great. I have such fond memories of that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So where did you go to high school in Glencoe too, or did you come to the city for schools, or what did you do?
I went to school. The high school was in Winnetka. It was called New
Okay.
Trier, and I went
Oh yeah, of
to
course.
I went to New Trier, and
You're a mean girl.
I am indeed one of them for sure. I slid into the theater department there. They had a lot of plays and musicals and choirs to be a part of. And so I really found my tribe there. So I did that, and tap dancing and singing and all of that back in my teenage years.
Awesome. So once you graduated high school, what was next? Did you go to school? Did you say, I'm going to be on Broadway? And what happened next?
I went to college. I went to theater school. I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh and studied theater there, and love Pittsburgh. Big fan.
I don't want to ask you on air how old you are, but do you know Amari Hardin?
I don't.
Okay,
I
so
don't.
it's probably different years. So never mind. Continue.
People are so
I don't
cryptic
wanna,
about. No, I get it. I get it. People are so funny. They're like, who was in your class at school? And that's the way that they can start to gauge the age without asking the specific number. So it's funny. But there are some kids in my class who are notable for sure. So you could do research on them.
Like who?
Zach Quinto was in my class, who's Star Trek. He was Spock in the new Star Trek, amongst a bazillion other things right now. So I was in, tights in ballet class with Zach. And then my other classmate, Sean Hader, just won the Oscar for screenwriting Coda, which won Best Screenplay and Best Picture last year. So yeah, those were my classmates. Now you can Google them and figure out when we graduated.
So were you a theater major? Were you a musical theater major?
It's this kind of same but different. So you're a theater major at Carnegie. And then, so I was taking all of the classical theater classes like voice and speech and Shakespeare and Greek theater and learning to do Chekhov. And then we would additionally do voice stuff like, voice lessons and piano lessons. And then we would take dance classes too. So we were kind of considered a double major. So they were really big on their musical theater students being trained as actors first and foremost and storytellers. Then the musical theater, or I should say the musical quality of stuff, was developed in tandem with that.
Got it. So what roles did you play in college when you were at Carnegie Mellon?
Oh my gosh. I was Friar Lawrence in Romeo and Juliet. I was in the chorus of Hair. I was in The Mystery of Edwin Drood.
Oh yeah.
And Jasper Johns. And I was in this really funny comedy called The Musical Comedy Murders of the 1940s. I was in Our Town as well as one of the dads in Our Town. So it was, a spectrum of stuff. We didn't perform for the first 2 years. We were on stage crew.
So what do you think
We
of
were
Our Town? I remember I did when I was at St. Ignatius. That was one of the first, when I my freshman year at St. Ignatius, I remember we did Our Town and I was on the crew for that. And I thought I was so over that play.
It's real wholesome. It's real wholesome for sure. But I gotta say, I was working with some pretty fierce kids, and they were bringing their Our Town A game. So Emily Webb was never more Northeastern perfect than Rachel Hardin, who played her. So I think we did a good production, I gotta say. It was pretty solid. I oddly didn't find it boring. I liked being in it, and it was a cute little production.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I just took you on a sidebar. When you so after you graduated, what was the plan? Is it like I'm going to New York and I'm gonna be on Broadway, or did you think like
Exactly. Yeah. It was more like, I'm going to New York and I'm going to be a bartender, which was the reality of things. I moved up there and was, hustling, baby. I was waiting tables and doing gigs here and there. I would leave town and do a musical here and there and come back and bartend and cater waiter. And then you'd be in readings and in the city and make connections. And that was cute, but I found that it was cute, but it wasn't quite clicking for me. Like I wasn't getting the traction that I wanted to. And I felt like I wasn't in charge of my creative career. I felt like I was really at the bottom rung of a very tall ladder. And I wanted to have some more agency over what I was doing with my creative life. And so I segued out of that and started producing my own stuff in the city. I started out by producing a karaoke show that I was in with my friend named Kick-Ass Karaoke. It was a show that happened in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and in the East Village. And we would take, your kind of standard karaoke and make it into something a little bit more thematic and theatrical. So we did Trailer Park 4th of July karaoke, where my friend and I were cousins living in a trailer park, and we put fried chicken on all the tables, and we'd be like, "Cousin Jordan, come up and sing Total Eclipse of the Heart." And so we would add a little bit of theatrical flair to it. We did, it's timely right now because it's tax season. We did a whole Motown karaoke during tax season, and we called ourselves The Extensions. And we rephrased all these karaoke songs to being about tax time. And so anyway, I started getting a lot of joy out of producing my own stuff. And then I started producing other people's shows. I helped run a show off Broadway. I produced it. It was called Maiden's Prayer. And that was on 42nd Street. So I started to get a sense of how to produce a show with the marketing and the ticket sales and the engagement with the theaters, and I liked it. I liked being involved in all aspects of that, the bigger picture creation of a project.
Of like
and I think
how to get it like in front of everybody and how to make it successful, not just the creative aspect of it.
And production it's a little bit of both, right? You're handling the logistics side, but also shaping the creative too, so that all the pieces are talking to each other. And I think that that's what got me interested into producing corporate events. And that's when I started looking at companies that did that sort of thing, whether it would be like spectacle of opening ceremonies of the Olympics, which is initially what I wanted to do, but then found companies who were doing stuff that was more consistently available, which was like the industrials and corporate theater kind of stuff. And I started doing that, a decade and a half ago, and I built a career out of that, and have enjoyed being able to create some really cool pieces along the way, work with some amazing celebrity talent. Last year, I got to work with James Corden on stage. Obama was in one of my shows, was sitting on the stage that I designed. It was moving beyond belief. So it's been really great to be able to, use my background to do stuff that I still feel creative and it pays the bills, and I can walk away from it feeling really like you've done something really, like I've done something worthwhile, and something really creatively satisfying.
Totally. Once you moved on to producing and also doing your creative directing for the live events, were you still performing at all, or did you kind of step away from performing? And
oh, my biggest performance has been pretending to be a creative director for the last 15 years of my life. It is a full-on performance every time I do it. So yes, and I sing a lot too. I remind my partner, I'll sing, and I'll remind him, I'll be like, you get this for free, but people would pay upwards of $35 to hear me sing. I didn't perform, so I haven't performed very much, but I did perform Gay Zombie. That was my big performance when I put the one person show up. And I'm actually looking to put that up again this year. So I'm going to be remounting Gay Zombie. We'll see if it's still called Gay Zombie or if it becomes Tom the Gay Zombie. But I'm reworking it right now and writing music for it, and intend to have some versions of it up pretty soon in New York.
In New York? All right, let's talk about that. I mean, I'm sure Jose told you I produce, and let's talk about that offline. I'm curious to know what you want to do with that, because
I'd love to.
It all sounds so incredibly fun. So what made you move to Miami? I've been asking Jose that same thing, like, why Miami? You were, you know what I mean, in the sense of working the business. You work in New York, you work in LA. What made you say Miami?
You've got style.
Blue sky, sunshine.
White sand by the mile. Come on.
But why Miami?
Love. I fell in love. I was
with the
down
city
here for
or with a
conference with my man, actually. I was down here for a conference, and my partner Sergio was at the same conference, and it was lust at first sight.
Aww.
And yeah, so we really were into each other, and then we hung out during the conference, and then we started dating long distance, and we would see each other every so often, either in our respective cities, or we would meet somewhere not in our city. I think our first date was actually in San Juan, Puerto Rico. We were like, let's go to San Juan. So we did that.
I like that.
And then we started cohabitating together in each other's cities because we had that flexibility. So he would spend a few weeks up here, I would do the same down there. And those stretches of time became longer and longer. And now we split our time between the two cities, but I am Miami now, and I'm a Florida resident now.
Yeah. How does that feel? And I'm like, well, this isn't a political show at all, but I'm just curious, just with everything that's going on, what's that like being in Florida, and like, what's the temperature there? I'm just so curious, because
it's tense.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's really wild. Every day it's something shocking and new with what is being passed, and how people are being treated and dismissed in a race. And I have some friends who are in politics who I'm closely aligned with, so that I can know what next steps to take. Because sometimes you're like, what do? I feel so strapped. And whether it's, how do we encourage voting, or how do we hope that certain companies will stand up, like Disney's here? How can we demand that they take a stance on all the things that are happening. But in Miami Beach, we're in a little bit of a bubble, I think, because it's definitely more of a relaxed environment. You've got a lot of people from up north who moved down here. So there's a lot of more liberal people, but nevertheless, you can feel it for sure. And with the new legislation that they're passing on queer rights and the expansion of gun rights, it's a really wild intersection to be at, and it's very real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yowzer. Does your partner work in the business as well? Is he in?
Not at all.
No.
No, he's like 180 from me. He's not the artistic type. He is very logistical. He is very analytical. He sells medical equipment.
Oh my goodness. It's like, yeah, it's totally completely different. So is he like in awe when you like hang out with like theater people and when you hang out, or is he just like, yeah, go do your theater thing?
A little bit of that. Go do your theater thing. He likes theater that has like, he likes theater that would be in Las Vegas, I gotta say. Just like splashy, fun shows, jukebox musicals, pizzazz. He likes that kind of sparkle. And don't get it twisted, I love that sort of stuff too. But that's where he lives. Like the last thing we saw on Broadway was Moulin Rouge.
Right.
And great. But that's his jam for sure. So I go do my things when I need to have a little bit of, when I need to have a little bit of check off in my life, or I need to have a serious theatrical moment. But he's all about a British drama, actually. He loves anything British drama on TV. That's his tea for sure.
Oh my goodness. Well, he and I would be friends because like I like subscribe to BritBox specifically because I love British drama. What do you guys watch on the British drama as far as the British drama goes?
Well, he's the one who leads the way on that. And he was a real big The Crown fan. Like that was constantly in the background for sure. So that was his jam. And I think that's the latest one that we were watching together. There's nothing British right now, I don't think. We're watching Lucky Hank with the guy from Better Call Saul right now, as well as this silly comedy with Melissa McCarthy named God's Favorite Idiot, and it's fun. It's funny.
Have you guys watched Line of Duty?
No, what's that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me tell you. Only reason I started watching Line of Duty because I happen to be reading Deadline. And this is like maybe a year ago. And I was reading Deadline and they were like, Line of Duty, like the ratings had come in and it was like the highest rated British drama on television and of the year. And I was like, well, I gotta watch it because it's on, I think they have it on Hulu too, but it's on BritBox and it's like 6 seasons long, but like the British shows are like only 6 episodes a piece. Think like, it's like the Law and Order of Great Britain, and I love me some Law and Order, but I kind of think in Law and Order, it's so good. So that's what I recommend. I recommend Line of Duty.
Great, I'm writing it down.
Talk to me more about your musical. I want to know, so how did you, because that's a big step, right? Like to say like, I'm going to produce this thing and I'm in New York and I'm going to find a place to put it up in and I'm going to fill up the house with people and I'm gonna do a thing. Because a lot of people can't, don't do it, can't do it. And it's tough, especially like in New York where there's so many things going on. What happened? Like, how did you say like, you know what, I'm doing this musical and I'm putting it up?
I gave myself a deadline. I was like, it's gonna happen on October 15th. And I talked to the people who had helped me on the karaoke show, the Kick-Ass Karaoke that I did with my friend. We had a little bit of, we had a press company doing some press for us with that show. And I reached out to them saying, can you help me find a venue? Can you help me with some press? And they were like, well, when do you want to do the show? And I set a date and we then found a venue, which was like this downstairs like rock and roll stage So it was really perfect. It was like a gritty rock and roll space, which was exactly what I wanted
Where
for.
was it?
It was called Ace of Clubs. It was on Great Jones Street. I don't know if it's still there. It was under this, I think it was a barbecue restaurant named Acme. And so downstairs they had a club called Ace of Clubs, and it was a rock and roll venue, or
Mhm.
a venue for bands to play. So because Gay Zombie is a one-man show with his band behind him, it was great. It doesn't need to be a proper theater. In fact, it's better if it's not. So we had the date, I had the venue, and then I just needed to fill in the blank between having, staring at my computer and having this date in front of me. And I'm a big believer that everything takes as long as you give it. So this show was going up in 2.5 months. And so I just sat at my computer every day and wrote and was listening to music and started to figure out how all of it would come together. Now, fortunately, I wasn't writing an original music at that time, so I was shaping a jukebox musical, which is a pretty effective shortcut. We'll see how things unfold as we move forward. I'm still debating whether or not to pursue the jukebox route or go full on original score. I'm sitting with that. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, as I was writing it, it just kept unfolding, and I just kept showing up every day. That was my mantra. I was like, just show up every day, even if it's for just 5 minutes. Just keep writing, and slowly it started to take shape. And I knew a music director from some of my corporate work, and he was able to put a band together. Some really stellar musicians, like a drummer who played on tour with Robin, this bassist who had played with Gloria Gaynor, like
Oh, wow.
really solid people. And we put it all together. And after the script had been shaped and I read it to some of my friends and put it up on its feet, we put the show up. And yeah, so that's kind of how it all came together.
That's so excited. So what do you want to do with, so what's next? I know you're talking about remounting the show itself, but as far as the comic book, what are you thinking with the comic book?
So the comic book right now is, well, it's available online for purchase. First off, you can go to my Instagram, Tom the Gay Zombie, and there's a link on there that you can click and you can buy the comic book. It will come directly from me. So that's fun. And so I'll sign it and send it to you, and I'll even put a little sticker in there. But I'm working on getting it more readily available, or I guess that's the way to say it, more widely available. It'll be up on Amazon soon for purchase. There's some steps to take in the editing and publication process to do that. So that should be up on Amazon pretty soon. And then there was some interest from a bookstore in Chicago to carry my book. So I think that it'll be up there this summer, and I'll probably be doing a book signing at Unabridged Booksellers in Chicago, babe, in Chicago. So we'll go back to the source for that. Yeah, so there's that piece of it. And then I'd also written a short film, which you saw as well. I animated it some, and there's a theme song, and anyone who's listening, you can check that out at Tom the Gay Zombie on YouTube. You can see the first 3 minutes of the short there. But I guess what my intention is I want to keep animating little pieces to maintain or to build my audience. Maybe I'm even going to write some original songs and animate those like I did in the short on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And have that be kind of some crossover to the stage show. So as I'm writing stuff and animating it, you'll probably start seeing that and helping it develop for the stage show.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Do you miss performing at all? Like, when was the last time you performed, like outside of, your own work? Like, when was the last? Has it been a really long time since you've performed either in a musical or in some other venue? And do you miss that at all?
It's been a while. Yeah, it has been a while. Do I miss it? Huh. I
That's a no. You're
I don't know. I don't know if I miss it. I don't know if I miss it. I
Is
think
it
that
the
was a
performing
really
itself that you don't miss, or is it the like lugging your book, down and doing the cattle calls? It's
oh
like
my gosh, that
sitting.
life for sure. Oh my God, 16 bars. And then can you come back and dance on Tuesday? And I was like, I guess. And I'm not a great dancer. And so I would never make it past that phase of it. But that hustle that you have to do as an actor is it's hard. It's really, really hard. I don't miss that. But I get a satisfaction out of bringing people together in a theater setting and having them experience something really new and magical on stage when I do these events that I do. And I get a really deep satisfaction out of this. And I think that this is more my life now than it's being on this side of it now in the house, directing what's happening on stage and concepting the show and shaping the entire piece. I think I get a deeper satisfaction out of that than I would if I was on stage. And not to say that I wouldn't want to do that, but it's just a different time in my life right now. And I mean, I might very well perform Gay Zombie when it goes back up in New York, or I might have to get someone half my age to do it.
Ah!
So we'll see. But I like, kind of circling back to what we were talking about, like why I transitioned anyway. I really wanted to be consistently creative. And I get to do that now, not only with my corporate work, but with, drawing Zombie and working on the stage show. Like there's an agency on it or agency with it, and a satisfaction that I get out of it that really works for me right now.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. Well, going back to, because then we were talking about performing, I'm so curious now, back in the days when you were hustling, going from Shetler to the other studio, what was your like go-to song in your book when you were auditioning?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh my God. Well, there was a really shameless one. I would sing 16 bars from Starlight Express because it was just so like vocally, like I could just wail on it. It wasn't about lyrics, it wasn't about the emotion. It was just like belting my tits off. And I did it. And it was really, I love doing it. I would do that. I would do, I think She Loves Me from She Loves Me was a big one that I would do as well. I think that there was something from the Scarlet Pimpernel that was pretty big in my
I
repertoire.
loved that show. I really love.
Oh my
What happened to?
gosh.
What's Linda Eder doing? Melon person?
I don't think she was Carnegie, no.
No, I used to. I'll never forget. I saw her, and It was a double. It was a double show. Two headliners. It was her and Michael Feinstein.
Work.
Feinstein.
Sure.
But I'll never forget. It's like her pattern. I remember thinking, like, okay, well, who wrote this show? Because she goes, a lot of people think that I try to emulate Barbara Streisand, and I don't. And then she went into Don't Rain on My Parade.
That's I mean, if she was being funny, that's an amazing joke. I would laugh the entire time.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence on our show and how that's changing things, how that's changing just how quickly things can be done and how it makes things a lot easier for, as far as writing, getting press releases out, getting, whatever, just even emails out. How, like it is, as far as what you do, as far as event producing, has AI come into play? And do you see it doing anything positively or negatively in your space?
It's so interesting because there's so many ways that it's impacting. I can't remember the particular artist this morning that my partner was talking about, but a song between Drake and The Weeknd. The song went viral and it was done by AI.
I was reading about that.
Yeah, they didn't write it, AI did, and it went viral. So what's so weird about that? So you see that, and then you see, the first time that it popped up in my mind or awareness was when there was those pictures of Trump seemingly being arrested in New
Hauled
York
off
and
or
trying
whatever.
to,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, what? And then I realized I read that it was AI. And what's so wild about it is like this idea of truth and what is true now, and that AI can create things that you're going to start to believe. And as our people are believing their own truth anyway, with what trying to overturn the 2020 election, this seems like a really blurry world we're about to enter, where things will be presented to us as true and they may or may not be. And so we're entering really uncharted territory that's super blurry with this capability. So it's pretty wild. As far as how it relates to me, it's funny. I was working on some Tom the Gay Zombie musical staging stuff, and I just thought, like, well, let me see if I wanted to take a crack at writing a monologue. And so I plunked in some stuff, and it spit out a monologue for an opening monologue. And you know what? It wasn't so bad.
You're like,
But,
oh God, why can't I write crap like this?
or write it so fast. Like, my writing's good, but this came out so fast. But I think ultimately what it is good for is thinking of it as like an intern. Like, collect information for me, give me a framework of what I can do, or a structure, an outline, and then I can take what I like and leave the rest. I can, pluck what seems to work, because sometimes what I need in my creative process, I'll get murky, and I can't. It's like a Thanksgiving dinner. I'm like, there's too much on my plate, and I think that AI can thin things out a little bit, that I can see, oh, this could be a potential path. But then I need to pick up on it on my own and, write it for real and give it my personal experience and give it whatever flair that I have. It's tempting. It feels like cheating, but I don't want to go down that route. It's not.
No, I understand. Because when like the Chat GPT first came out, I was like, this is horrible. How dare they? I'm calling my rep at the WGA. I will never. But then I started thinking about it. And then I downloaded it and I tried it. And I was like, oh. And what I'm realizing is just, I feel that ultimately it's just an evolution, right? Because you still have to put to get what you want out of it, you still have to put everything you want into it. So I'm kind of thinking of it as, how back in the day you had a dictaphone and you just said everything stream of consciousness, and then the girls out in the typing pool would put it together for you. Like, I think that that's actually kind of what it is. And I think that there's going to be a whole new career, sort of like, do you remember when social media first came out and no one thought anything of it? And so it was like, yeah, have the assistant handle the social media. And now it's like social media is like the biggest, the biggest segment of marketing. I feel like a new career path is about like being a person who can input prompts. I think prompt writing is going to become like a career path.
I can see that. I do get worried a little bit though. Like, my friend who's in advertising was saying that there's Chat GPT and then there's DALL-E, which is the artistic one, where all of those,
like
drag queen versions of the drag queen versions of all the Republicans just came out. So that's DALL-E. And he was saying that his art department, they'll to mood board a commercial or an ad campaign, that takes people time and days to put those things together. And now you can say it into Chat GPT. We want to see a heterosexual African-American couple enjoying life because they have taken this medication and they're able to now go kayaking in the Rio Grande. And we want the lighting in it to be such that it goes from darker to lighter to show how their life improves. And it will spit it out in seconds. And then if you look at it, you can change whatever aspect of it you want to polish it. But the worrisome thing about it, and I know Jose is in the comments saying that he thinks it's the devil, it might very well, take some people's jobs. And I think ultimately it's gonna make people lazy. And I find that one of the things about the creative process that, gives you gravitas and gives you a reference point and it helps build your character. I think that's a little lofty. You go through the struggle of being like, I don't know what this is going to be. Like, I'm going through some struggle on my own with this, with the musical Zombie. There's some things I can't figure out. There's some stuff with a corporate project I'm on right now, but I have to sit in the discomfort and, work through problems and, ask people to brainstorm with me and rely on, research and do that. And that builds, I think that ultimately builds wisdom. When you have experience over and over again, then you have some sense of perspective and wisdom around whatever it is you're working on. This stuff, you don't get that anymore because it's so fast. And I don't want to be an old person being like, we had to do, all of our own research, but I think that there's some muscle memory being built. There's a lot of muscle memory being built with whatever craft you're working on that gets stripped away from these chat GPT. And I think it's going to make people a little less, make them a lot lazier.
I think so, but I also think it's evolution. For example, like we talk about visual arts, right? Adobe, right? Doing everything, digitally, like people don't sketch in the same way that they did before, there was Adobe. I think about, did you watch Mad Men?
Sure.
Do you remember Brian Batt's character?
Yes.
When photography, they got to a point, remember he was an illustrator and he did all of the illustration for all the ads. And then they got to a year where all of a sudden it became about photography. And he lost his job because they found out, he was banging the bellboy or whatever. There was like a teeny mini arc about how what he did as an illustrator was slowly going away because magazine ads weren't about drawings anymore. More and more was about actual photography. And so I kind of see it as just the next evolution. I remember I had a wonderful conversation on this show with Devin. Do you know Devin Green?
I don't know. Remind me.
She's a vocalist and she does comedy. She has a satirical character called Mrs. Betty Bowers, America's Best Christian. And I think it's
I don't know her, but that sounds amazing.
She's really funny, but she's very much a creative person. She just creates. And I remember, and this is now, I think she came on the show during COVID. And I remember just having a conversation about how everything's changing so quickly and all of this. And I remember her saying, she's like, it's not good, it's not bad. It just is. I was like, yeah. And I'm kind of wondering if this is similar.
Maybe. I just find that whether I'm putting pen to paper, like a pen on a piece of paper, or if I'm putting my digital pen on an iPad, there is fully me connecting to it. I can use technology to enhance stuff, but there's even in that, I'm learning a new skill. There's something a little too easy about just saying something into a computer and having it spit it out. And I think about kids who are going to be able to doctor up research papers. I can't imagine teachers in high school who are like, compare these two pieces of literature. And then the kid can say that into chat GPT, write a 2,500 page essay on, comparing whatever, this versus that, with no reference point. And so it's that struggle that I think
like the dumbing down of people.
Yeah, I just worry about that. And I know it's happening in ways that I'm probably aware of anyway with all the technology we have, but this is a really overt one that takes the work out of things in a way that I think is important to still have, because I think that that's putting in the work is what develops your skill set and also can lead to really unexpected things. When you're putting pen to paper and you're like, oh, that came out. Instead, you lose that opportunity when you're relying on the technology. I think they're great as assistants for sure. But like anything, people are going to become really reliant on it because it's easy. No one wants
like
to work.
You said,
I don't want to work, baby. I don't want to work.
But it's the work, right? You did the work doing, the theater at New Trier. You did the work doing 4 years at Carnegie Mellon, and doing the work, not having, technology do the work for you. You not only, create good stuff, but you also, I think, as a person, because as a person, it also helps you develop as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I understand what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. And oh my God, I can keep on talking, but I think we're out of time. And I'm so sad because I really enjoy conversing with you.
Me too, babe. This has been super fun. I can't believe, this was a great first date, I gotta say.
I know. Oh my God. I can't wait to go home and text my girlfriends and tell them all about it.
I know, me too. Well, let's make sure to have a second date, okay? Let's recap and regroup in I don't know, 6 months time, and we can see where we're at when, my show goes up in New York and all of that.
Sounds wonderful. So before we go, I know you mentioned it mid-show, but let our audience know where you can be found online. And we're also gonna, on our technological spaces, we're gonna let them know, but just one last time, let everyone know where we can find you.
Absolutely. Well, I want to put a plug in first for Miami Beach Pride. That's where Jose and I met. And we were at the Queer Art Festival. So big shout out to Carol Combs, who curated that. So it was fun, and there was a lot of great art there. But you can find Tom the Gay Zombie on Instagram. There's a link there where you can buy the comics. And if you don't have Instagram, you can go directly to where you can buy it at tomthegayzombie.bigcartel.com. And you can also watch the beginning of the short film on YouTube at, guess what, Tom the Gay Zombie. And I'll have the website out soon, and the book will be available on Amazon probably within 2 weeks. But those are the places that you can find him/me now.
Awesome, my dear. Well, thank you so much for coming to play, and I can't wait to chat with you again. Thank you all in Radio Land for listening, and we're going to see you next week for another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Hassel and Friends, right here on Hot 702.5 FM. And don't forget, you can download the Hot 702.5 FM app and listen to the show in real time. And please check out hot702.5fm.com.